Okay, so I started the recording. So yeah, so this is what we'll do today. So once we pick up this policy, the other actually all the other policies are mostly self-explanatory, and they're all there's so many other things that are there in Intune, like all this credential guard, yeah, and then BitGuard, DMA, all of the other policies are all comes automatically once we really understand how all this works. Okay, because they are just good to know information. There's nothing more that we can do on all other policies, but this stands critical in almost every organization, as every organization, the number one security feature that they need to enable on every laptop is BitLocker. Okay, so what is BitLocker? So again, it is in simple terms, we are encrypting the operating system drives. Okay, that is at the basic. And then who encrypts? There is a program which is inbuilt within the Windows that is called the BitLocker. Okay, so encryption is a broad terminology, and BitLocker is the Microsoft's solution for the encryption. Likewise, there are so many other things, right? McAfee encryption. They have their McAfee agent, and it'll encrypt automatically. I mean, with the agent, help of the agent, the encryption happens. Okay, but this is a native inbuilt BitLocker encryption that's there. And why do we do that? Again, it's again a simple logic. If something is encrypted, no one can read until they have the decrypting keys, the decrypting recovery keys. Okay, and again, if it's tied to a particular laptop, if it's tied to a particular TPM hardware, then you just cannot go ahead and connect your hard disks anywhere to your other laptops and find out, I mean, read information. Okay, it has to be locked from the same hardware, unlocked from and encrypted from using the TPM from the same hardware device. So there's so many, details within the BitLocker. It's more of the security terminology, security people who understands in detail. But for us, it is very simple. We are enabling BitLocker, which is which is our native encryption. And how do we do that? There are so many other methods that we all have. Okay, so yeah, we'll discuss that. But if you can just look at this, there are so many other protectors. There's something called a protector. Okay, I'm protecting. Okay, so I'm protecting the BitLocker using certain functions, certain elements, like a pin, like a USB key, like a TPM protector. A protector is something. Yeah, we'll just look at that in deep, but it protects, unlocks or locks something. Okay. And these are most of the BitLocker has specific hardware requirements. Okay, so again, when I say hardware requirements, if you go uh, TPM can be one of the hardware requirements. Okay, so nowadays, if you actually look at our Intune enroll devices, the silent encryption, for example, is there are two things, right? So even if it's a standard user, the silent encryption really happens if it's UEFA convert the TPM 2.0 only, right, for Windows 11 devices. And then there are some BIOS and UEFA firmware. Okay, so if you're talking about the USB mass storage, right, so there are certain requirements. All these prerequisites keeps changing based on the operating system version also. There's a lot of difference between Windows 10 and Windows 11. The native BitLocker encryption from Intune policy, BitLocker policy CSP. Okay, so yeah, speaking about CSP, what is happening is in the backend, there is something native encryption. There are some EXEs, I mean, there are some programs that initiates and triggers an encryption, and that triggering can be done by any other tools. Okay, so group policy is one of the tool. So group policy can initiate encryption. Okay, so secondly, SCCM client can also initiate an encryption. So, and there are some third-party tools also can initiate the encryption. Any client management tool can initiate an encryption or trigger an native BitLocker encryption. For Intune, what is it doing? It is a Intune BitLocker CSP, it's a configuration service provider. There are few functions that only works when we are working with the Intune. Okay, but in all cases, we are triggering a BitLocker. The triggering of the BitLocker is the same. Okay, but who triggers it is a bit different. Their agents, GPO also does the GPO trigger, creates a registry, changes the registry and creates a scheduled task to do it. The same thing goes with SSCM client also. And the same thing also goes with CSP. The only channel between other things and the CSP is the DM clients modifies the CSP, gives the CSP value, CSP changes the registries, and that is where system identifies to start an encryption. Okay, we'll see what different CSP we have, where do we find it, how do we read the documentation in the same class today. Okay, so at a high level, this is again, okay, so I'm just covering the basics. Okay, I'm not really doing anything else. So this again, the where do we check? Okay, so again, very important thing in the reporting itself is more than enough for us to check, but it will take time. There are 2 or 3 reasons why it takes time. As soon as the device encrypts, okay, it really doesn't report the status automatically unless there is a synchronization back to your Intune. Okay, and this is one thing. Okay, encryption compliance checks also. Okay, I'll come back to that. But again, there are two things if you remember. There is require BitLocker and require encryption. Okay, so I will see what is the difference between those two compliance policies as well. So the TPM version is again like these are all the things that actually gets reported, and these are all good information for us to find out. So as we said, right, within Intune, these are the 3 BitLocker policies that we have. People either create an endpoint security profile that's there, and the second is the device configuration profile, right? Earlier, this was the only thing, and they moved few things to an endpoint security profile, and they have added ADMX in template to this. Okay, so endpoint security baseline, if a team, okay, so if usually if it's a small organization, people really don't know anything. Okay, so when I say they don't know anything, they will not have any standards of what to configure. So for all the IT admins who really don't understand what needs to be configured, the backup and the last resort is always the endpoint security baseline, or any kind of baselines we already have it. Okay, so it is a very important things to configure. Okay, so we'll again talk about baseline today. So silent encryption, as you know, okay, so silent encryption, unless the device meets all of the requirements, okay, it doesn't really give you the silent encryption. Okay, so the silent encryption always happens if there is no, okay, pin entry. Okay, you remember people enter pin, many organizations have the startup pin. In order for the startup pin to work, okay, in Intune, silent, if you want that, silent encryption won't work. Okay, so there is an again thing. Silent encryption by meaning it means that there should not be any user interaction, and that will not happen if you if you enable the requirement of the startup pin. Okay, so that again we'll see what are the different settings there. Okay, so this is where you'll find the BitLocker recovery keys. Okay, and this can be found in many places, right? You already know. This is either found in, if you go to properties in the Windows devices, you'll find the BitLocker recovery key here. And if you again find go to the BitLocker recovery keys per device, you can again find it here. Help desk team can also find it as soon as they enter the device ID. And end user also can be enabled so that they can log into their my account and can check the BitLocker key recovery keys if they are deep. So for people who don't understand what is recovery key ID and recovery key is nothing but if at all any operating system detects any kind of changes, like say for example, if you just remove your battery, not battery, RAM, and put the RAM back, it will prompt for your key ID. Okay, any major changes within the operating system, it identifies that it could have been tampered, and that is where it prompts for a key ID. And every key ID is associated with a recovery key. Based on the key ID, you need to enter the recovery key. Okay, so then that will go ahead and unlock it. Okay, so there's always a BitLocker key rotation there. And you can actually rotate. Uh, can you see my screen? This thing.
Yeah, Raj.
Okay.
Raj,
So yeah,
regarding that BitLocker key, in the previous slide, there are some, yeah, yeah, here. So there, BitLocker key ID and BitLocker key ID and the recover key ID. So whenever there is any changes happens on the device, as you said, okay, there will be
yeah,
some extra ID and recovery key will be created. So it will be like constantly. It happens like every time if you make any changes, there is a new recovery ID will
yes,
be created. Okay,
yes.
so if that is the case, so then, how do we know that which is the, which one we need to keep or which we need to delete? Can we delete, previous entries as well?
Uh, I don't think so. I'm not seeing the latest option, but when I was checking, I don't think so. We can delete. But let's check, okay? When we're opening the console, we can see if we can delete. I don't think so we can delete. The only way we can see is based on the BitLocker key, okay? There is a key ID available. Someone tells you the key ID. It displays in the operating system the BitLocker entry key where you are need to enter it. It already display a key ID. They will give you the key ID. We need to provide the recover key.
Okay. Because if you have the multiple devices and multiple keys will be there, right? So then it will be too many address will be there in the console. So that time, that kind of fun. So anyway, so we can see that.
No, it all depends on the devices now. If they may
Yeah.
be okay. Say if you come to the device, you may find many, and that is the only I don't know for what is the data what is the data number of keys that they are limited. But if there are old devices, many testing devices, yeah, I've seen up to 8, 9 keys. But for normal PCs, end user PCs, you'll hardly find two or three.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So this again BitLocker key rotation is again we're just rotating. Okay. When why do we need to rotate? There are many other reasons where you can suspect something. Okay. So these are all built-in encryption report, all managed devices supports. Yeah, so these are all managed devices, encrypted, non-encrypted. This is more than enough. Okay, if according to me, this report is, I've not seen any errors in it. As soon as you see encrypted, you will find a recovery key within few hours. Okay, for any device that shows as encrypted. So, and again, this. Okay, so there are two options in the compliance settings. Okay? Many people are confused. One is the device health, which says BitLocker and require. The other is the Windows 10 compliance policy. Within that, it says encryption as require. Okay. So the encryption of the data storage on the device setting generally checks for the presence of encryption on the device. Okay. More specifically at the OS data OS drive level. Okay, so this one only checks at the OS drive level at the presence of encryption. This, as you can see, it never uses the word encryption, sorry, BitLocker. It just checks if it's encrypted or not. Whether you have encrypted with McAfee or BitLocker or any other third-party encryption, but it only checks the initial encryption, whether that OS drive is encrypted or not. This BitLocker specifically checks the native BitLocker encryption is turned on or not. Okay, that is the only difference. So based on that, you will start to see the device compliance and non-compliance things. So if your organization requirement is very, very particular to find out whether BitLocker has completely encrypted the devices, okay, and it has because this BitLocker also checks the status at the TPM level also. Okay, so based on that, we can actually see what's there. Okay, so when and this also requires reboot to reflect the correct status. Till then, the device will always be non-compliant only. after checking the compliance status. Okay, so you can actually, if as a standard practice, you can create compliance policies initially starting with this alone, and then slowly check if this how good this works in your organization, and slowly change it and keep adding to. I mean, keep this as a testing part, and a bit later roll it to all of those devices. Okay. So you all again, you might have seen while encryption is starting, right? So what is the difference between full disk space? Okay. So this again tells us whether the OS drives will be encrypted using used space only or the full disk encryption. Okay. So say for example, in your C drive, if you have 20 GB, sorry, I'm just giving a C drive an example. If it's a 40 GB, 20 GB, say for example, OS plus all the other files are 15 GB. So it encrypts only the 15 GB. The other 35 GB will be not encrypted. In such cases, you will see faster encryption status and also reporting. For a full disk encryption, say for example, if you have a 500 GB hard drive, it will definitely take at least 2 to 3 hours. The use space encryption really takes a long time, and the rest of the space takes another 15-20 minutes for that to be encrypted. And if even in that case also, when you run a command like BD status, you might be seeing encrypting in the process all that statuses you will see even for 4 hours also. I've seen a 500 GB hard drive taking up to on a physical laptop, a Lenovo laptop, for 6 hours. Okay, because almost 240 GB was already used space. The rest of the space again took another 1 hour, 2 hours. So total 6 hours, 4 hours plus 2 hours. Okay. So all that by the time it reports back and all, right, it usually take 1 day, two time. What if, okay, that guy has encrypted, he shuts down the laptop and go. Okay. So you can do multiple synchronizations, restarts, and check whether this, if at all you are worried about the status report. But if you have seen the device has encrypted, you'll already find it as encrypted. Okay. Sometime it'll get reported. Okay, so again, why we again have to do all of this encryption? As you know, this there was an MBAM tool long back, and many people were using MBAM even today. Okay, so the support ended here in 2009, and some people have extended till April 26. And if you go to their documentation, Microsoft strongly recommends go away only with the Intune bit management for BitLocker. Even that's the highly recommended. You can still go to AD and SSAM and group policies, but their documentation highly recommends to move to easier management when it comes to BitLocker. They have almost included everything. Okay, so if you look at all this today, when used, if you had people have working back in 2018 and 19, when this was announced, they checked the BitLocker options in Intune and they said we cannot because it was very premature product. There were hardly any reporting status, any identification, number of options were also less. Okay. And that really within 1 or 2, 3 years, everything changed. Almost uh, anything that you require. Okay. Either recover, I mean, key rotation itself, that was a recent addition, 2 or 3 years back, they have added it. So anything that will be asked by customers for change of tools, yeah, anything that's required and Microsoft understands it's critical, they will eventually add that feature into the product. And any questions on this today, just for basic?
Yeah, Raj, actually, I just wanted to understand. So, like for full drive and use space. So, if you say that for the entire drive encryption, then what it will encrypt if we don't have the data only?
No, why will you want to have data? You'll at least have operating system data.
No, I mean to say if we are encrypting some other like a USB drive, like when we plug a USB stick, then in
See,
that case also will that
in the
apply?
see again, it depends what policy we define for USB as well. What is happening with USB is the policies that we have in for USB is unless you enter a key, it won't encrypt, and it only belongs to the organization. There's only two or three different variety of information. I mean, different. unique policies you have for USB. What it means is you can only use your um, uh, USB to a person who unlocks it from their organization's account. Okay, so it checks the UPN, and that's the only way you can unlock and relock. Okay, so you cannot take your USB and go and connect it to your personal home computer, it will not unlock. Okay, so it only works within your organization's computer is one thing. Second thing, you will only be entering a pin or an decrypting with a pin. Okay, every time you connect to a pin, you need to enter it for unlocking of that USB drive, and every time you just disconnect, it will never work. And you take that USB key, connect to any other device, it won't work. Same thing goes with you. Used and unused space on that USB keys also. How much
Okay.
you want to encrypt, it'll encrypt, or else it won't encrypt.
But if we don't have data only, then what it will encrypt?
It will not even encrypt. So see, it's not like that. They should be some kind of simple one file also.
No, no. In terms of that full drive and free use space, I'm talking about. Like
Mm,
basically, I can understand use space. It will definitely encrypt the data. But
no,
what about
I
the
let me
full
ch
drive?
let's check whether even for USB we can. I don't know. Okay, so I'm not an expert there, but so why are you so curious? I want to understand. Did you really?
Mm, no, actually, I thought like for free space, why it doesn't make any sense to get it encrypted, no?
And is there any policy that we can exclude the USB data not to be encrypted?
No, no, it's not. Everything has a separate policy, and let's check what policies we have. Let's find out what we can do there. Okay, so a lot of things get changed, so I cannot really remember. So we have, okay, where are all the BitLocker policies? Okay, so this is the configuration here. Okay, so first thing, this is where it was for a long time. If you go to Windows 10 and if you go to templates, if you go to endpoint protection and create a policy, we had this policy here, right? So here, and this is where Windows encryption was there. If you look at Windows encryption settings, these were all there even for today. Okay, so this is a complete replica of a CSP, BitLocker CSP. Okay, so what it means is, okay, so whatever you see here, this BSP Hive, that BSP path, the same thing is configured here. Okay, you don't find anything other than this here in this policy. Okay, so for example, removal of storage drives, you'll exactly find removal of storage drives. Okay, so for example, yeah, so you can see removal drive encryption. Okay, so if at all, okay, so if at all we didn't have this UI, we could possibly use this encryption with all of these values and custom create one of those policies. Okay, so I'll talk about CSB later, but what I'm saying here is the entire capability that Intune as an MDM tool can only perform these. It doesn't really mean that BitLocker is the main. With BitLocker, we can only do these things. Okay, there could be some other things, but almost everything is now added. Okay, earlier we did not really had so many settings to start with. Okay, we really did not have all of this. That's one place where you can actually find this one. You can define there as well. Okay, so usually of late, many people are using this, right? This encryption policy. Again, we have in this BitLocker, and if you look at this, okay, so this only has these things. Okay, so administrative templates they have leveraged. Okay, again, administrative CS also has a CSP. Okay, within that CSP, it is using that one. Okay, so if you look at this, we have in the Windows component BitLocker drive encryption, removable data drives, and then fixed data drives, and then operating system data drives. Okay, and then finally BitLocker drive encryption is the only things that we have. Okay, so removable drives, you compare to these. Okay, fixed and removable drives. Okay, so it says control use of BitLocker and removable drive. If I enable this, allow users to suspend and decrypt BitLocker protection on removable data. Okay, and then allow users to apply BitLocker protection on removal. Okay, if I enable drive, enable. Okay, so even this, for example, removable drive as use space encryption only. Okay, see, I mean, any use space encryption, it works whatever is there. Okay, whatever data is occupied, it is encrypting and decrypting there. And any place, I mean, all the other data will be unencrypted. It doesn't mean you just take the drive and connect to everywhere and copy the data, right? First of all, you'll not be able to write anything on the data until you put a pin, right? Until you connect to a laptop that is encrypted in the first place. Okay. So deny write access, enable, disable. Okay, so all that is there. This again is a policy. I mean, as you told, right, we can go one by one. Okay, so but if you create anything that you want, okay, so these are three things that you understand: what is disabled, enabled, and non-configured. So not configured, you just leave it as it is. Enabled and disable. If you enable, no matter what is the default value, we are changing it to work, making it as working condition. If you disable it, no matter what is the default value, it will change it to disable. So if you don't want to do anything in Intune, in any policy, it is always not configured. Same thing goes with not configured. Okay, I mean, same thing goes with any other policy as not configured. Now, if you look at it, for example, fixed drives, right? So a drive encryption type on a data drive, if I click it is enable, it always gives me the encryption type and it says full encryption and use space encryption. And then this is again choose how BitLocker protected fixed drives can be recovered. Okay, so again, yes, I need to recover it, but how do I recover it? Here is the answer again. Do not enable BitLocker until recovery information is stored in ADDS for fixed drives. Okay, so I really don't have to do that. Okay, so I would always say anything. Okay, if I just click on this, this is mainly for hybrid systems, right? So if I can disable this, and this is configure storage of BitLocker information to, okay, so it's up to this. Okay, keywords and passive packages, 48 recovery, allow recovery password. Okay, this is allow 256 recovery key. And then this is enabled. Okay, say you'll have there's a lot of values. Okay, so you can just click on this and then click on this. It'll gives you more information, right? But if you really understand, or if you really want to understand what is BitLocker again has a huge documentation. Okay, so if you look at Windows, the problem is even if you read today, if you don't use it as at a security level, you'll really forget it. Okay, so you can read it for once. Okay, long back even I read it. I really don't understand the very intrinsic details of every BitLocker, but I finally understood I don't have to keep it in mind for a long time. So if you look at the home page of this BitLocker Windows security documentation, at parts of the security, here it really explains each and everything. Okay, so this is how the BitLocker screen, what is TPM, why do we need TPM, BitLocker planning guide. Okay, this again talks about how do we plan. Okay, what kind of encryption we have to start. Okay, all these, what are the key protectors, for example. Okay, so to protect the encryption key, BitLocker can use different types of protectors, and when enabling a BitLocker, each protector receives the copy of the volume master key, okay, which is then encrypted by using its own mechanism. Again, so I mean, it's a huge subject. Okay, so I will only tell you how do we, from our end, how do we successfully configure policies? Where do we check? How do we really finalize that in the client machine? How do we how do you check? Okay, so how do we force? How do we troubleshoot? Okay, that's the only thing we are going to deal with it.
Raj, sorry for interruption. Uh, well, you said that BitLocker can be configured into three places. One is for configuration profile and endpoint protection, and another one, I just forgot it. But what is the standard way of configuring the BitLocker policy if customer asks? So whether we have to go with the configuration policy?
No, you can do, okay. If you are asking me what is the recommended way, endpoint security is the recommended way. Any security things that you want to do, come here and do it. Whatever is available there, this is where you have to come, because almost everything is moving there slowly.
Configuration to they are moving to endpoint security.
Yeah. Okay. So, and again, one thing to remember is, yeah, this is the only place you need to do it. Okay. It doesn't mean if you don't do here, it will not work. Okay. So, but because we don't know what will happen in the future, definitely everything will go away from here to there. This will become, though earlier this was there as a master configuration homepage. If anything you don't find, you come here. But what is happening, there is a version 2 of the policy builder that they are doing. Everything will go to settings catalog. You will not even have templates. There will be few templates until they realize everything are going away, it will go away. I'm just talking about 2 years down the line, you will not find templates. Everything will come to settings catalog. Similarly, every security setting will come here. Okay. As you know, this was never there, right? App control for business was really added recently. EPM was added recently. Okay, so only it started off with these three things first. Conditional access came later. ASR came later. All of these things came later. This list will grow, and within the same list, there are so many other things will grow. So again, if you come to disk encryption, so this is what I have created for some time back. If you click on edit, let's see, I have enabled require device encryption as enabled. I have enabled standard user encryption silently, okay, so that user is not prompted for any kind of encryption. The administrator templates, yes, I have created, enabled it. Okay, so uh, every time you click enable, if you really want to test it, if you have a physical laptop, on how this will work, click on enable it, click on apply BitLocker protection on removable data drives, enable full encryption or half encryption, it's up to you. As soon as you connect your device to your USB, it'll immediately prompt for your administrator requires your removable storage to be encrypted. Click on encrypt. You can click cancel or encrypt, but what is happening during encryption is it will unlock the TPM, take the and there is within the TPM again there is something called places where it stores your when I say places, it has some 6 or 7 uh, yeah, PCRs, right? So where your keys are stored, and that is where it gives out a key from the number 7 or 11, and then it unencrypts and then stores back. Okay, and it doesn't after it locks itself. Okay, so and then you'll not be allowed to use that pen drive in on any other laptop. Okay, so you will again be able to, there is a policy, not here. There is a policy where you can again, we'll find out. Okay, so there is a policy where on the recoverable drives, it will work if it is an organizational laptop. Okay, so again, that policy you can push it through a registry key or the default recovery key. So encryption drives allow users to apply BitLocker. Okay, so same goes. Okay, so what I'm here point is the same base of the administrative templates we have in the BitLocker encryption. We have removal drive, fixed drives, and operating system drives. So as you can see, put it as enabled, silent encryption is on. Okay, all these are very pretty standard. Okay, there's nothing special about it, but you can put it as allow startup with key and TPM. Okay, I put as encryption. Okay, so these are all automatically standard. I used all 128-bit for what kind of encryption method I have to use. Okay, so no matter what you do, most of the things will really work if it's a proper Windows 11 TPM 2.0. So if you look at me, okay, so even I have encrypted my virtual machine. Okay,
Raj, I
so
have one
this,
small question. Sorry.
yeah,
So
go ahead.
these are the settings, right? Normally, like I'm talking about like a design way, right? We'll not be knowing what are the settings and all this. So is it any way we can extract all these settings to the Excel in the similar way? It will be easy for us. Every settings we can make and just identify what it does and all things, whether it is can be added or not added or something like that. I mean, my main question is that if you set enable, there are other sub categories also comes up, right? Is there any way we can extract the same settings in the Excel or some other place or CSV?
Yeah, so in GitHub, there is one Intune policy. I don't know, I forgot all policy. I think so. There is one downloadable Excel sheet written by our planning and configuration. Not even this, but you'll find many things. But
Because the reason is we don't know like what are the settings. There are multiple hundreds of settings are there, and it is
no,
as you
there
said.
are see, as you can see, there are many Excel sheets like this. Okay, so if you look at device policies, this is already a ready-made document which standard configuration. Okay, so if you look at device configuration policy, okay, again this is talks about mobile phone. This usually explains. Okay, so what is all this? Okay, so it
Actually,
gives you the list of the
Raj,
things that.
I don't see any. Are you trying to pull it
Okay,
up?
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So this again, where I actually went is I just went to this GitHub page. Okay. So, and I just downloaded the things. Usually the problem is there's no point of using that Excel sheet, okay, because things keep changing. Maybe BitLocker may not change. Okay. BitLocker is something that is standard. No one can easily change it. But you'll usually find it in public articles where um, BitLocker alone settings are exported and put it in Excel sheet. Okay, so many people might have done that, and to help the community, they've already shared it. You'll find that, but no one will trust that. Why? Because we don't know what has changed. Okay, so you may be a 2-3 year old document. We don't know whether people have updated it or not. Okay, so the easiest option, usually how it is done, is they do a open board workshop. Okay, so to configure all these values. Okay, so or you may have to find out whether everything is updated on these or not.
Or is there any way that can be extracted from Microsoft Graph?
No, again, see, you can only, what you can extract is you can extend what is there in the database, or you can change few of the database. But this is not that way. Okay, this is just a policy, right? I mean, there's just a policy without any values.
Mhm.
So, okay, let me share my screen.
Hello, Raj.
Yes.
Actually, I just wanted to ask, like, as you stated, like silent encryption, it doesn't require the startup pin, right?
Silent?
Like you mean to say when there is a silent encryption enabled, then this particular startup pin is not required, right? Or something like that, that the
Yeah.
startup pin will not be available when there is a silent encryption enabled.
You cannot set up a startup pin and expect users to do and have a silent encryption. Yes.
Uh, so you mean to say it is the same startup pin, right? When we start a laptop and we get a
Yes.
like
When you
a
first start off the
screen to enter
laptop,
the
you get,
pin.
yes, that is a startup pin.
Okay, but so like
Who will configure that startup pin?
we can do it now.
Who?
Like administrator can do it via CMD.
When?
Like like once we get the access of the system, so later on this can be set up, no?
Yeah, you can set up later. Okay. But
Yeah.
if I'm encrypting, okay, the policy says you need to set up a startup pin before encryption starts.
Yeah.
Correct?
But
But
that
that
will
is
make no sense now, because if you have to set up a
no,
startup
who
pin,
wants the startup pin? You, IIT admin, or
no user
them?
should have the startup pin, no?
Yeah, but that's how they'll first time configure it. And that
Uh,
is when it first time asks for a startup pin, it'll you need to enter it, and then user will know that is my startup pin, and it'll continue the encryption.
Okay, so you mean to say that will be a default pin?
So whatever he configures it, he'll know it and he'll keep it. Yeah, that will be a startup pin.
No, I mean to say startup pin is something like if silent encryption is enabled, you mean to say at the initial stage there will be no
No,
default
for
pin.
a silent encryption, you will not have startup pin at all.
Okay, but post configuration we can have it, right?
Yes, that is
Okay,
different.
okay. And like what is the option like if we don't want the silent encryption, we want to go with the normal method?
Wait 1 second. There is so if you look at this policy, mm, okay, so okay, here silent. Okay, so what was the question you asked? Sorry.
Same like we do have a silent encryption wherein like we can suppress the startup pin, but what is the like other way like where we want to keep a we want to enable that startup pin as well?
You want to enable the startup pin, but you want to
Yeah,
and you want to do a silent encryption.
no, that is fine. We can understand, right? For silent encryption it is by default that we will not have a startup pin during configuration, but later on it can be done via manual intervention. But
Okay.
what about like if we do want to have a startup pin during the configuration itself, configuration time itself?
Okay, yeah, that is that will be plus TPM. One thing, configure minimum pin length at startup enabled, and allow enhanced pin enabled. Wait, disallow standard users from changing. New things will change. Okay, config the. Okay, this is where require additional authentication at startup enabled. As soon as you enable, there is allow request startup key and TPM and pin with TPM. Okay, so allow startup key and pin is where you do not allow is nothing will prompt. Okay, and this is where you control things. Okay, configure TPM startup pin, allow startup pin with TPM, and then require startup pin with TPM. Do not allow startup. Configure TPM startup as just allow TPM.
Okay. And what will be the default pin for this?
So if you what is default pin means?
Like
Okay,
it
that
will
is
be
here,
like,
right? Configure minimum pin length, and again, the policy setting allows you to configure a minimum length for a trusted TPM. The policy is applied when you turn on the startup pin must be a minimum of 4 digits and can have maximum up to 10 digits. Okay, so this is I don't see an option to change also. Okay, we just need to enable it. Okay, don't see a change option to enable. I think we have only option to enable it. We don't have an option to change it.
okay. So will it like give a prompt to set up the startup pin, or there will be some default pin that will be pushed to all the systems?